Bajashig, welcome. Welcome to Indigital Insights. Monique Minach Indigenous. Kidikanik Beck and Dojiba. My name is Monique Minach, and I'm a member of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake. And today we're going to learn from Jessica Brown. Jessica is a filmmaker out of Happy Valley Goose Bay. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm looking forward to learning about your work and how you got started and where you want to go. And so, how did you get started?
So, I grew up in Happy Valley Goose Bay, which is, a pretty remote community. And there weren't a lot of filmmaking, around. And I did watch a lot of movies. So, I think that's where, the initial interest started was on Fridays. Me and my family, we'd go and rent a movie like every week. And that's when I really started to love you know, cinema. And it wasn't until much later when I moved to St. John's with my two children and I came across an opportunity that was led by the Real World Screen Institute. And it was like a program where I could go and shadow people working in film and television. And for me, that was my very first time on a film set. And I just thought it was so exciting to see that, it's this gigantic, well oiled machine. And it was like just a breakthrough moment for me when I realized that these things are happening here in St. John's and I didn't know about it. So after that, I just took up every opportunity I could to learn and grow and, put myself out there. I went to so many different film festivals and watched a lot of movies. And it wasn't until, 2023 when I incorporated my production company, Ujarak Media. And it was really like I hit the ground running. My first production was a TV series with Bell TV1, which I produced and directed, and it was a lot of learning in that process. But since then, I feel like I've grown a lot, and I've also been able to build a bit of a platform and use that to uplift my community. So I'm a Nunatsiavut beneficiary and I do workshops in Nunatsiavut. So recently we did a workshop up in Nain, which was really cool.
What I got so many questions. What was your first series about?
My first series is called Here to Stay. It's a six-part documentary series that highlights the urban Indigenous community in St. John's, Newfoundland.
And did you talk to people from the Inuit community or the overall Indigenous community? Tell me
It
about that.
was really open in terms of anyone Indigenous working in the arts were welcome to be a part of the show. And so we had, Nunatsiavut Inuit. We've had Nelson White, who's Mi'kmaq, Deantha Edmonds, and just a really diverse cast. And we also shot at the Spirit Song Festival, which again is like even more Indigenous folks from just all over. So it was really nice to be able to uplift and celebrate the arts community here in St. John's, Newfoundland.
That's terrific. How you said you had built up a platform. Can you tell me about that?
For me was social media, using social media as a tool to connect with other filmmakers and creatives that live all across Canada and globally. And, I ended up getting quite a following online, and I kind of see that as a way for me to connect to people. And, I'm showing the work that I'm doing, and I'm also showing, um, other artists and, people who could benefit from that exposure.
What what types of work are you doing now?
Currently, I'm going on my fourth television series that I'm producing and directing. It's a 6-part documentary television series that will be shot up in the Torngat Mountains. It is, really nice to go home and to learn about the history of the land where my ancestors lived for thousands of years, and to capture that. It's a very remote place. We have to fly to the northernmost community in Labrador and again get on another charter, which brings us to the base camp. And then some of our filming locations are so remote that they're only accessible by helicopter or boat. So it's, just so special. It's such a once in a lifetime experience to go up there.
My
And
name
it's
is
also
Tara
a very
McDonald,
spiritual
and I am a
place. So
proud
the
Mi'kmaq from
Torngat
St. George's
Mountains
Indian
are
Band
where
and member of Halibu
our
First
Inuit
Nation.
ancestors
Join me
would
as I
go
journey to the
connect
west
to the
coast of
spirit
Newfoundland
world.
to
So
uncover the
they would
stories
go
of Mi'kmaq
there
veterans.
and connect with
Stories
the
of
spirit
triumph,
guides, which I
duty,
think is just going to
honor,
be so beautiful
and legacy.
so powerful.
These are
And
the testaments of
I couldn't be
soldiers
more
who laid
excited.
down their lives and those who continue
That
to
sounds
fight for our
amazing.
freedom.
I've
These are the
that is a
stories of
once-in-a-lifetime
those left
opportunity, really
unsung.
to go.
I'm so thrilled. I've been working collaboratively with the New Nazi government, and of course, the Torngats being a national park, we've had to, consult with Parks Canada, and I wanted to make sure that folks were seeing, just a really authentic experience and a glimpse into, this world that very few people see. I think the Torngats has less than 500 visitors each year. Yeah, and it's very remote. It's so beautiful. And there's different locations there. For example, Hebron, there's the remains of a settlement. It was an Inuit village. So they have a church that they're actually rebuilding. Um, it of course had, you know, began to fall down with age and the weather and the elements and everything. But a group decided that they wanted to bring new life into this church. So the Moravian church is really important to the New Natsivut Inuit and the traditions. And there's another place where there's just a mass burial of Inuit who, they've passed so long ago, but every summer they visit there and they do a memorial for them, which I think will be, just so powerful. And just being able to walk in a place where my ancestors thrived for thousands of years, in the harshest elements with polar bears. And it's just so going to be so incredible.
How do you come up with these ideas, and how do you how do you get in touch with the people, do the research? Like, how does this all come about?
I start with an idea. I could be inspired by, almost anything. And I just get really excited. And then I start, researching. I look up, are there other films made on this topic? What has been shot up there? I've seen a lot of like, tourism ads, things like that. But I don't think there's ever been anything quite like what I'm producing. And I pull inspiration. It can come from anywhere. I have other documentary filmmakers that, really inspire me. And also, sometimes it can be hard because for this region, I don't know like many people from my community that are doing what I'm doing. So I really just found a way to like pull inspiration from anywhere. And you find mentors along the way, people who will support you. Of course, there'll always be people to say you can't do that. And I guess I'm just a little stubborn because when I get an idea in my head, I'm just like, I have to do it.
Well, it must be pretty complicated logistically.
Yes, very. I know flying from St. John's to Labrador is so expensive. So we do have some strategic partnerships which are helping to offset those costs. But just air travel alone it's a lot to go to Labrador. I know this because my nan, she babysits for me and she flies from Happy Valley Goose Bay to St. John. So just that ticket alone is often like, very expensive. I have to book it well in advance.
Absolutely. And what about your crew? Like, where do they
We
fly?
have a very small crew. Most of us are flying in from St. John's, and our cinematographer is actually coming in from Vancouver. So he has a long journey, and I'm going to be very mindful of that. He's going to be jet lagged, he's going to be tired. So maybe have a day where, we're scouting and, we're going over the storyboard and, what shots we want to get so that we're not just rushing into shooting. We have a bit of downtime. So what's happening is there's a charter flight that leaves from Happy Valley Goose Bay that will go to the Torngat Mountains, and we're getting a charter flight essentially. So that'll take our crew and our gear, but I really had to like scale down the size of a crew that I would probably use in a more urban space, just because it's so remote and the cost of everything. So we have people on our team who are doing multiple roles, and that's kind of the nature of it in documentary filmmaking, especially is we all wear many hats.
Are you going to be camping?
We're staying in these, they're kind of like domes. They're really lovely. There's, beds and hot showers. There's food. Like, I feel like it's going to be such an amazing experience. And the base camp itself, it has like an electric fence to protect us from the polar bears. And we also have a bear guard on our team. So that was a requirement when you go up there because the polar bears are abundant. We're in their land when we visit, essentially.
Oh my God, that must be make you a little nervous.
Yeah, definitely. When I was in Nain earlier this year to do a film workshop, we went, it was about probably an 8-hour snowmobile ride north of Nain. And it was in this place called Tukaratsuk. And when you're up there, you're in polar bear country. And all the youth, if you ask any of them, what are you most excited about today? They all wanted to see a polar bear. And they did get to see one, but it was so far off. It was out in the water swimming. And it was just like a little tiny white dot. You could barely see it. But, to a trained eye, they can tell like that's a polar bear. But we were, we were all safe.
Well, that's close enough.
Yeah, you don't want them too close.
Not at all. How did you get into doing workshops?
For me, it was attending workshops. Like, I didn't go to film school. I just, you know, I've done a lot of delegations where, I travel with a group of people to an industry market or a particular film festival. I've attended a lot of industry markets, which usually have like panels and workshops, and networking was really important for me. And like, I knew that if I stayed here and I waited for opportunity, I could be waiting a long time. So I really put myself out there. And when I look back at, just when I got started, I felt like I was taking every opportunity because I didn't know if it was going to be my last one. And I just thought, this is such a great opportunity. Like, what if I say no and this is it? Like, I kind of had that fear of like, saying no. But I realized you have to take care of yourself, especially for me. Like, I'm a single mom, and I burn myself out essentially, like traveling and, working really hard. As much as I love it, I just have to remember to like prioritize, my own well-being too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
necessary. Yeah. Because then if you burn out, it's good to the film or your kids or to yourself. It's super important.
Yeah, and it's easy to do when you're doing something that you're passionate about and you love and it's exciting. And, I I've taken on a lot less this year and I've been more strategic about, where I put my time and my energy. And, family always comes first. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm a single mom too, and I just got the one guy, but yeah, I know what that's like.
yeah, definitely. It's challenging, but I think, you know, it's worth it. I'm showing my kids to, work hard and follow your passions, all of that. They don't really understand what I do, I think, but that's okay, when they're older. Maybe I could bring them on a trip with me or something.
Yeah, my poor son, he was a gaffer and a boom guy, and he was 10 years old hanging onto a boom trying to.
Yeah, that's my brother. I bring my brother to a lot of different things, and he finds himself in these, oh, he's holding a boom pole one day, the next day he's getting people to sign, release forms or something. So yeah, he's learned a lot just by coming on set, and if my kids are interested in doing something creative, like I would be able to almost mentor them in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Hmm.
he likes camera. He's a good shooter.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so he's well, he's going to school for photography. So um,
Oh, nice. That's
wait,
fun.
yeah, that's so I thought he would run screaming because of all the times I dragged him onto all the stuff we were doing. But I am curious about the workshops. Um, how do you do those? Like, how do they come about, and what kind of workshops do you do?
Uh, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and those are mainly the workshops that I have done. Um, it the two workshops that I've put off where I collaborated with the New Nazi government, and the first one was digital marketing because it's just something that I think is essential to a lot of artists, especially craft people, ones that bead or, they might make beautiful parkas or like you name it. But it was a way to elevate their art. And so everybody got a light box, and myself and an assistant, we trained everybody how to use that to get professional quality photos without the, super expensive camera. Like you could use your iPhone. So everybody in that workshop, they got a light box and they were trained how to use it. And then we also talked about like different ways you could market your art, especially when you live in a remote place and you might not, they don't have a farmer's market where you can go and sell your stuff. So it's moving online. And so I felt really good about that workshop. It was a lot of fun. I thought that it was only going to be a handful of participants, but I'm pretty sure the whole community of Hopedale came out, which was, it was so awesome to get to meet everybody. I absolutely loved it. And more recently, I went to Nain. It was during the New Nazi Youth Symposium. So there were 40 participants, youth, elders, community members, guides, and I really just didn't know what to expect. I showed up with my camera, some audio equipment. My friend Nate Gates, who I work with really closely, he was there with me as well. And we went into the community. We got up there on a little charter flight and we arrived. We got on the snowmobile and we went back to the hotel. That evening, we went to this like it was a meet and greet. Everybody was there. And we were kind of chatting like we thought it was going to be us almost like in a classroom teaching folks, okay, this is like how you make a documentary. But it was the next day we realized that that wasn't happening. We were going out with them on the land. They had land-based activities for the whole week. So we're really, we were told to dress warm and we did, thankfully. We were out on Skidoo all day. ice fishing, putting up a tent, cutting wood, skinning foxes, like just all kinds of really cool and fun stuff. So while all of this was happening, we were filming everything. And we gave some of the youth GoPros and these little like DJI mini cameras. And so they got to learn about it by doing it. And then we edited the footage that we had and we showcased it to the whole community. It was a gymnasium packed full of, you know, families and friends. There were, so David Hart, who's an Inuit musician, he performed, and the Sundogs, which are a Nain band, they played. There were throat singing and drumming, and there was a community feast. So it was just like so much fun, and everyone got to watch the film that we created that week. We were in a big hurry to edit it and get it all together, but I think Nate did a really wonderful job. And so we watched it a couple of times. We're like, we think this film is like pretty good. But, of course, you might always love your own work. So we've asked friends and, people, what do you think of this? We put it together as a short film. We called it Going Off because that's what they say up there when they're going out on the land. They say, we're going off. So it's a short documentary now titled Going Off. We actually submitted it to a couple different Canadian film festivals. So, it kind of shows that you don't need a, $1 million budget to make a film. You need a camera and obviously there has to be a story there, but it's completely independent film. Like we didn't have a budget. We just went there with their cameras, and now it might be screening here in Canada, so it's really exciting.
That is exciting. I love that. I love it when it's a community event. It's a whole, everybody comes out and takes part, participates in it. And I was fortunate.
So much fun. Yeah. And you see the spark. For me, it's like when you see the spark in the youth and they found something that they're interested in. Like I've also done work here in St. John's where I had funding to do a film and media summit. And so we flew people from all across the province to come here, and we were at the Alt Hotel. I think it was for 5 days, and we brought in, different people who really knew their stuff and were able to teach in like a classroom kind of setting. And we also did like a film screening at the rooms with my friend Serene Fox. Like she's amazing and total trailblazer. And we also did like some fun activities too. So that was really nice. I think like there's definitely a lot of room for developing the screen sector, especially in Indigenous communities. It's just about, finding the time and the money and the resources to do that. But I think there's absolutely no shortage of talent in these communities.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. And if we can get them started, just even with, show them how to do it with their cameras or with their phones, or, show them what they have at hand to start, and then, progress to, okay, now that you're putting together a story now, start looking at how you get funding and how do you, what the next steps are to and documentary, but as well, if they want to do more feature type work or even animation. It's for me, it's just making a space for the youth to express themselves. And showing them that, because there's showing them that they can do it, that they can take the reins, because I find there's nothing worse than when people come into the community and they do workshops and then they leave. I lived in Moose Factory for a while, Moose Cree First Nation. It's where my son's family lives. And you'd see people come in and the kids would get all excited, and then people would leave and they'd just be like deflated because, the equipment's gone and, the structure is gone and, then what? But so I was there with my organization, and we would do things that would, try to any whatever they have, and they're so creative. Like the way they come up with stuff is just, it's amazing. And not story ideas, yes, but ways of shooting it, you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
yeah, like
There was
using,
one youth, she had I think it was the DJI, the little gimbal, and she was on the back of a snowmobile, and she was capturing the snow flicking up, and just the surrounding, like the mountains and the ice, the snow. Like, it was just such a beautiful shot that I would never have thought to capture. We ended up using it. Like, you know, I'm always so surprised, and when I'm like filming in Indigenous communities, I know like the best suggestions can come from anywhere. So I'm always really open and, what do you think of this? Right. So I think it is a different way of, you know, going about filmmaking, but it's a like it's more inclusive that way. And I think that, there's room for everybody to really be a part of like any production.
absolutely. And um, you're right, it's inclusive, but it's also more authentic too, because it's coming from to me, it has to come from the community. Because if the community doesn't, or isn't interested, or doesn't want, doesn't um, participate, then you're just skating the surface, right? It's not, it's when they take an interest and when they start engaging, that's when you get that real authentic, and having, and especially I find the youth and the elders,
Mm-hmm.
when you have the youth and the elders, and they're both interested, and they're working together, and they're coming up with all these ideas, and yeah, it's we shot this one short film up in my community, and my community was moved because they built a dam. And so one of the kids, there was a drum group in the community, and so one of the kids, like, we were talking about the dam, and he said we should drum on the dam. I'm like, oh my god, let's go! So off we went, and it was a real poignant moment. You know, like, it got emotional, because this was our gathering space, our summertime gathering space for the whole community, and it was completely underwater. And here were these kids, and they were drumming, and they were singing to their ancestors, and it was so powerful. We're all like, and that's, to me, like, that's because I've done more documentary. I've worked on other things, but I've done more documentary than anything else. And so when when I'm looking at working with communities, especially, it's especially it can be complex when you're working with your own community. Um, so have you done workshops in your own community?
I haven't in Goose Bay, not yet, but I'm would love to do something. I know that there's more youth on the ground that want to get involved in film, and I'm hoping that this summer, if we do this production and the ratings are good, that can open the door for more work in Labrador, and the opportunity to train folks there who want to get involved in film. And that way, of course, I'm saving a lot of money. I'm not bringing in a crew from St. John's or wherever. It'd be really nice to kind of like see more happening in Labrador. I do find myself up north a little more, but it's just because New Nazi, what they put on a lot of their programming within the land claims area. So Happy Valley, Goose Bay, while there's a lot of New Nazi but Inuit that live there, like my family, I don't think it's considered within the land claims area. So um, I'm sure they'd be supportive of it, though. It would be really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it does depend on the funding a lot. If I can get funding to work, my community is mainly in is Algonquin, and it's mainly in Quebec.
Okay, cool.
So getting funding to work in Quebec,
Yeah.
it's a little more complex than getting funding to work. We're based in Ontario here, so in Ottawa. So I know it can be a more complex process
Yeah,
to get
absolutely.
everything you need.
But it's so worth it. I spent a lot of time grant writing, proposal writing, and things like that. And then this year, I feel like I haven't been so busy in that way. I've been really focused on, maybe scaling back a bit because I've really burned myself out. But I really I'm just dying to do something fun with the youth soon. I know it's coming. I just don't know what and I don't know when.
Well, it's building that training component into every project,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's making sure that 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 you have the youth who are interested in working and doing the projects with you. I think
Yeah,
that
and being in these spaces, right? Like I think that's another thing is just just for them to be invited into these spaces to see how a production runs and how, we all work together as a team. And I think that's so valuable, having that mentoring and shadowing on set. I've been really fortunate that for the last three productions that I've done, I've been able to do Indigenous youth mentorship on set where they actually got paid as well, which was really cool. And I'm working towards that for the next production. I don't have any guarantees right now because, of course, it depends on the funding, but that is something I'm working towards because I mean, it's such a missed opportunity if I don't do something like that. And another thing I realized, like when you're starting to work in film and you're a filmmaker, but you didn't really create anything yet, people always say, well, what did you work on? And I think for the youth to just have a credit to say, I have a real film credit and I worked on this production, that really gets your foot in the door as well. Because you know, I don't really care if you have one credit or 20 credits. I care about the energy you bring and, working and like it's such a different way that, I think most spaces in film and TV, it's just, a bit of a hierarchy almost. So it's kind of breaking that. And, I like to see everybody like we're all equal, we're all working together. I think
yeah,
that's a nicer approach for sure.
absolutely. I mean, it really brings a better energy to
Yeah,
production.
definitely.
Yeah. Can you walk me through the process? You said what what network or what TV are you on, and what was the process to getting the series together, and what kind of funding did you have to go through, and all of that?
So I first start with like a concept, something that I think could be, a TV series. And I kind of do a deep dive. It's like I want to know everything about it. I watch, other films. I read about it. I research, potential cast. And I just really immerse myself into that world for a while. And I do a one pager to begin with, title, log line, synopsis, cast, locations, just everything. And then when I feel like that is looking pretty good, I might, shop around and see what people think. It's always good to get an opinion, but sometimes I haven't done that either. I just from then usually go and create a treatment. So it's like a visual deck, really, where you have words and you're describing everything that you have on your one pager, but it's just like a little more in depth and you're giving visual references and you know um that is what I use when I then go to pitch. So the network you pitch to, it really depends on what you're pitching. So um Bell Media is where I have produced most of my work. Of course, I'm going on my fourth TV show with them now, but they're really accessible. You can pitch online. You kind of have to fill out an online form, and then you do a pitch meeting with the executives there. And I believe they're based in Ontario. And you do your pitch, and then they take some time, they get back to you. Sometimes they have questions, or there might be some more work that you need to do. I guess it certainly helps that like I myself am a producer. If I was just somebody who wanted to make a film, I would do all of these things, but I'd probably find a producer first, because it certainly like makes it easy, because I know how to like navigate the film and television world. I've done a lot of work, like especially on the business side of things. Like I feel like I understand how that works, so that's definitely like big plus for me. But yeah, when you get the green light, you set a schedule, pre-development, which would be like working on your pitch, your treatment, your one pager, um, pitching it. And then development means, okay, this is happening now. Who am I hiring? Like building a budget, building a timeline, building your story. Like, is this going to be a 3-episode series or a 6-episode series? How long are each, how long is each show? Like for example, the show I'm doing this summer, it's a 6-episode, and each episode is 22 minutes. So now when I'm doing the storyboard, I'm trying to hit 3 beats per episode, just the story arc. And finding a cinematographer that you work well with as a director, that's super important, because you have to work together and you want it to look a certain way. It definitely helps if you're a documentary filmmaker to find a cinematographer who does documentary, because there is a bit of a difference in the two. I'm so grateful because I've worked with like so many talented people that I feel like I'm just constantly learning from others. And of course, everybody's going to make mistakes, and that's a part of learning too. So I've made my fair share of mistakes, but it's just about getting up and keep going. And production, if I did my job right, it's usually pretty good. It's a well-oiled machine. We have a tight schedule. We generally know what to expect each day. But it is documentary, so you can do all the planning in the world, and sometimes the outcome is even better than what you could have thought of, which I really love. Always have the camera rolling when you are filming documentary, because when people have their guard down, that's when you get the magic moments. I also find that working with a small crew helps, because as you can imagine, like if you've never been on TV, you're not used to having cameras in your face. It's very intimidating for most people. So if you kind of have a built trust with the people that you're interviewing or you're talking to, and you have maybe 1 or 2 other people in the room, like don't go in there with 20 people, because that you're not getting the most authentic version of them. Because when everyone walks away and you're there and they're often still mic'd and the camera's rolling, that's when you get the tears and the laughter sometimes. Like, so it's just about building like an environment where people feel like safe to just be themselves. And it's a lot of fun. Like, I really love it so much. Post-production, not my favorite. But I have folks who kind of, they work with me finding an editor. For me, like at the end of every shoot day, talking with your crew and having field notes saying, okay, what do you think were the strongest like parts of the day? Because those notes then go to the editor. It's like we're all working together, even if not everybody is there shooting. It's like we're making notes for the editor, what shots I thought were the strongest that I really want to see in the film. And yeah, just, it all comes together in the edit, and hopefully, it's a good show and it does well. Um, and like, I think it's also really important that when we're working in Indigenous communities, that we're like aware of, they might have protocols, and, getting permission and talking to the right folks. Like for me, I'm kind of telling more Inuit stories because I'm Inuit and it just makes sense for me. But I think that, like, if you're working with another culture, another community, having somebody from that community maybe on your team, um, having an elder, depending on the subject matter, really. Like, if it's something that maybe is traumatic, having someone there to be like emotional support. So it's kind of just like really thinking about everything.
When you were saying you were building the budget, do you have to pull from various sources, or is it just Bell Media in this case?
Well, I get funding from the broadcaster. You get a license fee depending on, what broadcaster you go with. And you can get arts grants, things like that. And then there's also a tax credit that you can get. So Picture NL, they're really great. I don't know the rate offhand, but when you have your budget completely built, then you go to them. And I think it's like 33% of the overall budget that you receive. So it's really like such a good help. And then, partnerships and sponsors and things like that really help as well.
Do you build up those, or do you have someone who helps you with that?
I do everything myself mostly. Yeah. I'm definitely a worker bee.
So that's always having to be in place before you even look at your shooting schedule, because you
Oh
have to.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like if I did my job right, shooting should be a breeze. Um but of course, it's trial and error. I think I learned something new on every production. Um I can't say I've never made mistakes and that every shoot has been perfect, because it's far from that. And I'm working so hard, and I hope at the end of the day that people get to watch what we're creating, and maybe that they feel inspired by it, or it I think that's the whole point of this. And I do want to get into like scripted. I have some things in development right now, but I just love documentary filmmaking so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I always find there's so much to learn just spending time in the communities and just, hearing what they have to say. And, their stories are just so rich, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Like I think that um storytelling is just such a big part of who we are. We grew up hearing stories from our family, and like it's kind of like film is just, it's another expression of storytelling. It's a medium of, creativity. So it's kind of just having that like outlet, and I really I love it so much.
You mentioned protocols earlier. Are there any protocols that you're aware of in your own community that you would need to be aware of, that you would need to make sure to follow when you're telling? I mean, like if there's a cultural story in your community that you may touch on as a part of the series, or
Yeah, so for me, I go in with a very collaborative approach. The first thing I do is I reach out to the Nunatsiavut government, and I tell them, okay, this is, well, they know me by now because I registered my production company under the Nunatsiavut government, and then I also, so now that I'm working within communities, it's almost like they're a part of the team now, because like it's just they're often included in any communications, and they're aware of like, our plans, the story, who the cast is, and they really do have a say in that as well, where you know they might have a suggestion. Okay, well, how about this? And it could be far better than what I would have thought of on my own, especially when I'm trying to find elders or people that have a deep knowledge of a particular area or subject matter. Like, I've really leaned on them a lot to support me in that way, and that has been really good. And they also have a it's like a media. I don't know if it would be called a release form. I think it's a permit. That might be what it is, and it's a form that you have to fill out and include all of the logistics and what you're filming, and talk about how do you respect the protocols and things like that. And for me, it's like I always consult with community, with elders. um, my Nan, I'm always calling her and asking what she thinks, and it's kind of like she'll tell me. She's just so blunt with me, and I love her for it. And yeah, it's going in with like a collaborative approach, really, I would say, than going in there and saying this is what I'm doing, and it's like you're taking something. Then I like to go in, and for them, at the end of the day, I want them to watch what I'm creating and to be like, wow, I was a part of that, and that this like really reflects my community. That's what I'm hoping to work towards.
Where do they get aired through Bell Media? Where is it? Bell Media stations? Like where would we be able to find your work?
So my productions are available on 5TV1, which is a channel on Bell Media. I believe it's channel 1. It's also available on the 5TV app and on demand as well.
Excellent. And what are the? Can you give us a sort of a synopsis of the 4 different series that you've done?
Yeah, so Here to Stay, it's available on 5TV1 right now. It's a documentary series highlighting the urban Indigenous community in St. John's, Newfoundland. Unsung is the story of Mi'kmaq veterans, hosted by Tara McDonald. Runway on the Rock is a documentary series that showcases the inaugural St. John's Fashion Week. And the show I have that I'm working on this summer is called Voices of the Land, and it highlights the Torngat Mountains and how the Inuit are caring for the land and its environment.
Fantastic. And do you develop the you were talking about digital marketing earlier. Do you develop all the digital marketing for your series?
I do. Yeah, so I think that's like one of my strengths, is that I'm really good with social media. So because of that, it's like I have a further reach. I don't know where this skill came from. I think it's because I've always been a bit of a nerd, maybe. Like, I'm always, I love learning about like different ways to like connect with others online, and like marketing is an interest of mine. And I just like, without going to school or anything, it's like I kind of gotten really good at it. But I'm grateful for that, because it certainly helps.
Absolutely. What's your can you tell us your social media, like what your
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. My username is at XO Jessica D Brown. And I show a lot of like behind the scenes on film sets. I travel a lot, so I share that. Um, I founded St. John's Fashion Week last year, so that was really cool. There's a lot of fashion content on there, film, and I think I have close to 120,000 followers now. So it's it's a lot of fun, but also, I think having a large audience on social media made me very private in my personal life. And it's funny, but that's just where I find I'm at in my life right now, especially, navigating all of this as a single mom. Yeah.
There's that fine line between wanting to make sure that, well, it's about the work, really. You want
Mhm.
people to know about the work, but you know that your home and your family, you want to keep them safe, and you want to make sure that it
Yeah,
doesn't.
absolutely. Especially in today's world, like you don't want to share too much. Like, where do you draw the line in the sand, right? So I have become a little more private. I keep some things sacred, like my family, my children. Every now and then I'll post a picture of my youngest son Benjamin, because he doesn't seem to mind, but my oldest son David, he just has no interest in it. So he might come around eventually, but yeah. I even had Benjamin, my youngest son. He acted in a Newfoundland and Labrador tourism commercial. He was, I think, 3 years old at the time. And it was just so nerve wracking because he's just a ball of energy. He did really well, thankfully, but it was hard on the nerves. So I don't know if I'll do that again. We'll see.
Well, well, he's older now, which
He's
probably.
older now. Now he's into video games. My kids, they love, you know, they love gaming, and it's crazy because like my youngest son, he has the VR headset, and it's like it's so different than what I grew up with. I went out and I played outdoors, and I had a Super Nintendo and I played with my Barbie dolls, and now they just have so much like technology, and it's really cool to see like they're really good at it from a young age. So curious to see where all of this is going in the future and how things will continue to change.
Yeah, me too. I can't do the VR thing. I'm too old, I think, because it makes me kind of dizzy. So
It's
I.
really cool. Yeah, but I could definitely see how it could be dizzy. Like um he plays a lot of like interactive games where he's in there with other kids, and I can hear them playing, and it's just really cool, like, that whole like virtual reality thing. I'd be interested to learn more about it.
Yeah, no, I understand. That would be. It's a great way. We're finding it's a great way for language.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, and just you know making the culture that much more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, it's been so great talking to you today. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot just just listening to your processes, um, and I just want to thank you so much for.
Thank you so much for having me, honestly, for thinking about me and inviting me. It really means a lot. I'm super excited to share, anything about my journey, especially if it could be inspiring or helpful to another person. So, just thank you for sharing the space with me.
Miigwech.
Thank you.